Hey there, the next stage in this kilt is setting the top band. Now you remember back at the beginning, or maybe I didn't mention that, when I reduced the kilt to height, I had done all the chalking, I'd done all the calculations, and it was only then after that I ripped the top piece off, because we reduced from the better selvage edge. Now before I did a rip, I made a chalk mark to show where the center line of the apron was on this, because in the cloth there can be minute variations in scale along the length of the cloth, and I found that even if I offset it once, see that is as it came off the loom, but if I even offset it one, there can be, see, there's a tiny, it's out about half a yard there. I'm just laying it there. It's out to my eye significantly because I can see it. So even though I'm wasting a bit of cloth, I line it up to the top edge, and having done that, I then bring it around. You can see I'm following the arc of the kilt to the inner apron, and then, as you can see where I've marked it with the chalk here, there's the edge of the kilt, there's the end of the kilt. I'm giving it several inches. I'm gonna just do that again. It's lined up, and that's to the end. And as you can see, I'm giving myself a really generous allowance there, and the reason for that is when we are sewing this on, there's going to be some rucking here. It's going to be gathering a little bit. We're not going to be stretching it tight, because we want this cloth band, when we sew it on, we want it to be relaxed. We don't want to be stretching into position, because we want that little bit of stretch still there for when the kilt is worn. So yeah, we deliberately, I'm going to call it, waste a little bit of cloth. The rest I'm going to put to one side. I'm probably going to make a set of tartan garter knots for this client, and I'll show you how to do that. And then when he collects the kilt, I'm going to hand this to him and say, put this somewhere safe, put it in a Ziploc bag, and because it's the urge to play with it and make ginky things out of it is fine, but I urge the customer to hang on to this, because should in the fullness of time he become a more prominent gentleman, this will provide the cloth to do a longer top band. So the top band, I should have said in the beginning, but we're always unrehearsed in single takes here. The top band is like a blanket edging. With civilian kilts and the 16 to 18 ounce cloth, I use the leftover tartan cloth. With military kilts, or kilts of the heavier 22 ounce, the regimental weight, I use the woven cloth woven wool tape that the Army has been using since, I think, about the 1860s. We see this stuff in old plaids and kilts. I suspect that at the time this was the equivalent of the 80-pound test that you used to see in every airborne quartermaster store. They'd have rolls of the stuff. They used it for everything. And I think that was the case in the Army QMs a little long ago. So this is available in the Army green. It's also available in several other colors. In the written portion of the introduction to this video, I'll post the company name so you can buy it from there. But right now we're working on tartan, so I want to do this band as narrow as possible, because the wider it will be, the bulkier it'll be, and the more volume it puts on in the waist. We don't want this to be a thickening effect on the customer's figure. So I've lined it up. Where'd my center line go? I flipped this around, didn't I? I did. There we are. Now I'm going to fold this over in this finished effect. It's going to be folded over and sewn, and then the inside is going to be folded over the top and sewn in sort of a lacing stitch. Some kilt makers will do this second fold over top of the lining, but I don't. Now again, I'm going to make it as narrow as possible, so I'm going to cut the fringe here. I'm just cutting the edge off, as you can see, because the top band is going to go around that corner. Now, I've been gradually making this narrow, more and more narrower. So now I've decided this one's going to be about 2.5 inches. I really don't want more than 3 inches. So with this 2 inches, I can lay it. See the edge line? I've made a chalk mark there. Line up with the edge of the cloth, and I'll fold it up. And in this case, I'm lucky to be able to use an element of the tartan. I will be sewing it to that green line that we see there, and that gives me about 1.5 inches to fold over on the bottom. Now, to get a straight line, I don't bother cutting this. I rip it. And this, I'm just going to extend this. This causes conniptions in people that haven't seen this before. This, unfortunately, well, if anybody can think of a use for that, I can't. Now, there's a couple of gathers here from the rip, so I'm just going to tug them flat again. It's good cloth, so that rarely happens. Now, in past, I flipped it end for end again, didn't I? Yes. In past, I would pin this in place and do a fell stitch along the bottom, but acting on the advice, the suggestion of my associate, Mr. McIntosh, I'm going to do a running stitch on the inside. And to that, I'm just going to attach a couple of pins, and then I'll just start it to show you how this is going to go on, and then we'll end this section. So again, in past, I would have pinned it like so. So the raw edge of the top band matches the raw edge of the top of the kilt right there. It's the same height. And then I fold it up and pin it in place and fell stitch all the way along. But this time I'm going to act on a suggestion by my associate, and I'm going to do a running stitch. Now I'm just using white thread here so you can see, but let's find out how well this turns out, because I might just leave that in. When I was doing a fell stitch, I would start around the corner. I would start sewing here and then around the corner. But because I'm doing this running stitch, it's a back stitch, as you can see. And I want to do it close enough together that it holds the cloth properly in place. I can get rid of that pin now. The advantage to this, I think it's going to be a little bit quicker. See, I can hold it to see that my tartan is lining up. See, the two are matching. So when I fold it up, see, it looks fine. You can't see that white thread. It looks fine. This is a little bit quicker. I think a little more sure, because I can hold it up like this and I can match the tartan. It also allows me to sew a little closer to the edge than the fell stitch would allow. So this is a good idea. This is how I'm going to do it in the future. So I'm going to sew all the way to the end. I'm going to do a blanket fold at the corner and sew back again, because I have no editing skills and I don't have time to learn. Maybe I'll do a short video to show you how I do a blanket stitch on the other end, or a blanket fold on the other end. But there we go. So there's the start of our top band. Here we go. Cheers.